Alright, so similar to yesterday's lesson, looking at solving equations by adding and dividing, now we want to look at solving them with multiplication and division. So we're going to use those division property and multiplication property of very similar to the addition and subtraction ones we did in the last video. So our first key concept, the division property of equality. Now, what we're saying is if I divide two equal numbers by the same number, I'm going to end up with an equal number on both sides. So let's say you had two whole pizzas and I divided your amount by 4. Well, if you had two whole pizzas, so let's get ink here. Two whole pizzas, and I divided those into fourths. That means you're essentially going to have 4 halves of a pizza. And if I took a fourth of those, or if I'm taking you down to a fourth, so I'm dividing by 4, you're only going to have this much, whereas before you had 2 pizzas, now you only have a half, because 2 pizzas divided by 4, you're going to have half a pizza now. But if your friend also had 2 pizzas and I divided his or her share by 4, now your friend also only has a half of a pizza. Same with if we have a variable. So if I have 4 times x equals 24, I can divide both sides by 4. When I do that, these 4's cross out and give me 1. And then 24 divided by 4 is 6. And we're going to look at some examples dealing with that. So solving 7w equals 161. Let's go ahead and write this out. 7w equals 161. To get the w by itself, we're multiplying here. So I'm going to do the inverse and divide. So I'm going to divide both sides of the equation by 7. When I do that, the 7's cross out, and I'm left with w, 1w, or w, equals 161 divided by 7. 7 goes into 16 twice. We're left with 14, and we bring down the 1. It goes in 3 times, and we have a remainder of 0. So w equals 23. We can double check our answer there. Just put 7 times 23 into your calculator for 7w. You should get 161. Now looking at this equation, 7x equals negative 56. Let's get the x by itself by dividing both sides by 7. We cross out the 7's. We get x equals negative 56 over 7, which is negative 8. If we plug negative 8 back in, so 7 times negative 8, we see that we get negative 56. And then to graph it on a number line, remember, I like to just put 0 here and draw little hash marks on the negative side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Our negative 8 would be found right here. So go ahead and pause the video if you need to solve this equation. Now try this one. And finally, we're going to look at a word problem. We have Esteban spent $112 on boxes of baseball cards. He paid $14 per box. Write and solve an equation to find how many boxes of cards that Esteban bought. So if we know he spent a total of $112, we can say 112 equals $14 times the number of boxes he bought. We'll call it B for boxes or for baseball cards. So again, if I have $112 equals $14 times number of boxes, I'm going to get that B by itself by dividing both sides by 14. So I get 112 divided by 14. I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator here. And 14 goes into 112 8 times. So you can see that equation written out for you there, color coded so you can see each part of it in detail if you need to pause it and think it over. And once you've done that, go ahead and try this problem out. And now we're going to look at the multiplication property, very similar to the division property, since multiplication and division are essentially two sides of the same coin in a sense. So again, if you have 3 coins and your friend has 3 coins, and I decide to quadruple your amount, so I give you 4 times the amount you had 3, and then I quadruple your friend's amount, give them 4 times what they had, which was 3, you're going to get the same number on each side. So some examples: -3 equals -3. If I multiply both sides by 4, I get the same result. Now looking at fractions, if I have 1/5 times x equals -3, and I take both those sides times 5, notice my 5, I have one on the top and one on the bottom, so I get 1x. And then on this side, when I multiply 5 by -3, I get -15. So go ahead and, if you need to, pause and convince yourself about this multiplication property of equality. We're going to go ahead and look at this equation: y over -5, or y divided by -5 equals -12. As soon as I see a number on the bottom, I immediately want to multiply both sides by that number, because that's going to allow me to cancel it out. If I multiply this side by -5, I have to multiply this side by -5. But notice I have that on the top and on the bottom, so I'm left with just 1y equals -12 times -5, which is going to give me a positive 60. As you can see, they wrote 1y equals 60, and then of course you can divide both sides by 1 and you get 60. So go ahead, pause the video, work this one out, and submit your answer. So let's look at what happens when I have both a number on top and the bottom. So I have we'll say -3 over 4 x equals -9. What I would do is, like I said, my first reaction is I want to get rid of that 4 on the bottom. So let's take both sides times 4, because that's going to get rid of that fraction. And now I'll just have 1 times -3, or -3x, equals -9 times 4, which is -36. Now I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by -3. And we're going to get x on this side. We're going to get positive 12 on this side. So my final answer is x equals -12. Does it make sense that 3/4 of 12 is 9? I think that definitely sounds really reasonable, because if I put -3/4 times 12, I get -3 times 12, which is -36, divided by 4, which is -9. So my answer checks out. Please try this problem and let me know what you get. Pause if you need to. And that concludes our lesson for today. Thank you for watching, and complete your assignment in class and let me know if you have any questions.